I'm sure as you guys are hopping on to play the new 3.1 Segu story, you may be as shocked as I was while talking to Luuk that Quirrell gave us so many details in regards to the structure of the Overseers of the Fractsidus. If you've been as curious as I was as to the new names being dropped, I thought I'd quickly make a video discussing the symbolic nature of these new names and Overseers, because that's kind of what I do, right? Just as a quick note before we begin, if you haven't played Luuk's story, there will be some spoilers from the beginning of it, so take note of that before we continue. Within the beginning of Luuk's story, he gives us a massive lore bomb in regards to some new and unknown Fractsidus Overseers, and more importantly their codenames, which he says reveals a lot about their character. For example, Phrolova's codename was Hecate, while Cristoforo's was Arachnos. In addition to this, we get a new pair of overseers that work together, called Siren and Hydra, as well as also a figure called Eris that worked in the new Federation. Additionally, within Ashinohara, there even exists an overseer called Zashiki-warashi, and it is my goal in this video to go through the symbolic background behind each of these names, so that we can do a little bit of theory crafting for what we may be able to expect when it comes to future run-ins with these characters. To begin, let's start with territory that we'll be familiar with, Frolova and her codename Hecate. In my previous videos, I've discussed that Hecate has two perspectives. Firstly, it is a Greek goddess of death, magic, and liminality, a concept where someone or something is in between two things. This applies significantly to Frolova as she is a purgatorial being. She is stuck between life and death, and even wants to collapse these concepts altogether. As such, her very existence is essentially reminiscent of the goddess Hecate. However, Hecate is also a character, the queen of the witches within Shakespeare's play Macbeth, where her magic and words lead the main character, Macbeth, to his demise. This mirrors both several of Frolova's lines, which directly quote the play, as well as also Fenrico's character, who is Macbeth, something that was very unceremoniously revealed to us in 2.7. But from Frolova's case, we can definitely see that Luuk's hypothesis is correct. The Fractsidus Overseers tend to pick codenames which reveals a lot of information about them. Next on the list, we have Cristoforo. We've of course met him several times, but this is the first instance where we hear of his codename, Arachnos. The word Arachnos is simply spider in ancient Greek, and where we get the modern English word of arachnid and arachnophobia. Now, the fact that Cristoforo is symbolically depicted as a spider matches a lot of what we have already about him. He is a playwright that weaves schemes and sets elaborate stages, waiting for people to fall into his trap. However, one thing you're going to notice throughout this video is that the Fractsidus Overseers seem to have a bit of an obsession with classical Greek and Roman myths. In this vein, the word Arachnos may also refer to the story of Arachne in classical mythology, a tale which tells the story of a talented weaver called Arachne, who challenges the goddess Minerva to a weaving contest, which she wins. What's interesting is what Minerva and Arachne weave in this contest particularly. While Minerva weaves a tapestry that shows how mortals are punished by the gods for putting themselves as their equals, Arachne weaves a tapestry that displayed how gods had abused and fooled mortals. In the end, Minerva realized that Arachne's tapestry was far more beautiful than her own, so instead of admitting defeat, she beat Arachne, which resulted in her later committing suicide and transforming into a spider with Hecate's power. And yes, we are talking about that Hecate. This tale mostly focuses on the hypocrisy and the abuses of gods and divinity. And when you think about what Cristoforo has been saying, has been advocating, especially in 2.7, as he questions about how fate could be so cruel to allow people to suffer excessively, trying to create a new world where fate and divinity are completely overrun, where the very rules of the world itself are rewritten. Suddenly the tale of Arachne and his codename, Arachnos, begins to make a whole lot of sense.
With that truth exposed, Have you ever suspected that humanity's fate could also be the design of a higher being? Who scripts such destinies? Who appoints such suffering? If fate cannot grant equal grace to all, if it cannot offer each soul a just and rightful end, then perhaps it is we who must tear the old script and become the authors of a new one.
By this point, it may not surprise you that the next two overseers on this list, Hydra and Siren, who Luuk talks about as working together and being the top scientists in force evolution and body modification within the organization, are also linked to classical myths. Hydra, you may know, was a water monster with multiple regenerating heads, which Hercules eventually defeated by burning the necks after he sliced the heads. Siren, or Sirens, are creatures in the forms of beautiful women that lure sailors to their death with their magical singing. Within the Odyssey, Odysseus runs into Sirens, and he has his men chain him to the boat while they plug their ears in order to survive the Sirens' enchantment. If the Siren legend is true, it may match the fact that both Hydra and Sirens are effectively scientists who make monsters, humans spliced with TD parts, working to create monsters from Greek myth. In fact, this wouldn't even be the first time such a thing happened in Wuthering Waves. In 2.7, Chimera, Galbrenner's familiar, refers itself as originally the Nemean lion, another one of the monsters Hercules defeats in Greek legend. The next overseer on our list, Eris, who operates probably within the politics and high levels of government within the new Federation, where Luuk reveals that Fractsidus are based, to the surprise of absolutely nobody, will definitely not really surprise you as also being linked to Greek and Roman mythology. Again. In fact, we've actually already talked about Eris in regards to Wuthering Waves' symbolism with our Cantarella video, where one of the fairy tales within a character story pushes forward the symbol of the golden apple of discord, which is a very important part of Eris' story. Eris is the Greek goddess of strife and conflict, and a tale that really illustrates this is her role in starting the Trojan War, where she inscribed "to the fairest" on a golden apple and threw it at 3 goddesses, who all fought each other to claim it as theirs. The fight escalated into a full-on war, hence Eris' reputation as someone who causes and loves strife and conflict, hence her being inscribed on many instruments of war such as Achilles' shield. Considering their look heavily infers that the Fractsidus have infiltrated into high positions of the government of the new Federation, it seems to me that Eris is an overseer who uses strife. Just like Eris in Greek myth, she most likely excels at making people turn on each other, creating and prolonging conflict for her own benefit. The final overseer to go through finally departs from a trend of classical mythology. Luuk describes an overseer within Ashinohara, a region mostly already destroyed by the Lament, to be the operating grounds of a fellow called Zashiki-warashi. This is particularly interesting because Zashiki-warashi, roughly translating into the living room or parlor child, comes from Japanese folklore, being a yokai that takes the form of the ghost or spirit of a child. It is said any child who was killed in a house, whether on accident or on purpose, usually to reduce the amount of mouths to feed in a family, would turn into these ghosts. The Zashiki-warashi have very perplexing understandings, because even though they inevitably show the hidden darkness of any community that would go as far as to kill their own children, Zashiki-warashi have often also been associated as playful beings that gave households they inhabit good fortune, acting as a kind of guardian spirit. It may be that since Ashinohara is a land mostly destroyed by the Laments, it is an environment of ghosts and perhaps reverberations, meaning that maybe Zashiki-warashi is an overseer that specializes in manipulating these frequencies, which we know can capture the essence of deceased people. Without further information though, we can really only speculate as to further details. Hopefully, if you're curious about the symbolic background references of the new reveal of the Fractsidus Overseers, this video helped you answer some of your questions. As always, if you enjoyed, I'd appreciate if you subscribe, maybe even donate or become a channel member. Next video, I'll be talking about the symbolism and references behind Luuk, so make sure to look forward to that, and I'll see you all in the next video.